Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So, as promised last week, so this is the rains retreat of the Dhammacakka Sutta. So it's only the third week. Hopefully I find more things to say. Another 7 weeks to go. So it's a random, unsystematic, pseudo-scholarly, not really Pali specific, just more of impressionistic, whatever comes to mind that week when I'm chanting. See what comes up. So today the thing that came up was the 4 ways of letting go. The 4 ways that the Buddha talked about the cessation of craving. Remember there's 3 types of craving, right? There's kama tanha, which is sensual indulgence. And there's bhava tanha, which is craving for existence. And there's vibhava tanha, which is the craving for annihilation. So those are the 3 cravings. And the antidote to those cravings is different ways of letting go. And in the Dhammacakka Sutta, the Buddha talked about the 4 ways of letting go. I think in the English version they translated as the complete cessation, given up, abandonment of that craving, complete release from that craving, and complete detachment from it. But the Pali, from what I understand, this is what my memories from Bodhinyana, really. So I'm paraphrasing Ajahn Brahmali and Ajahn Brahm. So the 4 ways of letting go are, is the first one is chago. Chago is chaga. Well, that means anything to you guys because you're not taking Pali. But it's, chaga is it's like practice of generosity. Chaga. So chaga is so it's the giving away your defilement, to give away. And but it's also a type of giving. It's like a giving from purity of the mind, giving without expecting anything in return. That's how you let go. That's how as Buddhists we practice generosity, because that way we're letting go of our possession. So much of our possession is a sense of self. And as a banker, I know people are very attached to their money. People think it's safety, but to give away your money, to give away your possession is such a large of your self-identification. And in the Buddhist tradition, is giving without expecting anything in return. When you give to a monastery, you're not expecting your name to be on a building or on a bench. Although it's creeping up, people practice giving, but it's not uncommon to go to a monastery and every single piece of furniture or building has got somebody's name on it. So you can say, yes, it's the practicing generosity, but it's not as pure. If you want to give a bench and then you put, in honor of my mother, or this is from this family, and then the kuti is from that family, and then Buddha Rupa is from that family. It's kind of encourage people to give. That's the reason for it. But sometimes you can see it's not completely pure. And but obviously people start out where they can, or in monastery, even people give and they do things, there's a self behind it, and it's normal. Like when I was training in Wapanadichat, it's called the Abbot's Corridor, because everybody sweeps in the morning. Part of your chores to sweep. But it's also it's called the Abbot's Corridor because that's where Ajahn Charasaro comes in every morning. So it gets where it gets most swept. Everybody's sweeping right in front of where Ajahn comes. Nobody sweeps anywhere else. They just sweep right in front of wherever the monks come. So the Abbot's Corridor, because that's where everybody's about 50 people sweeping there. Even though there's nothing to sweep, they keep sweeping, they don't go anywhere else. Because that's where you see the Abbot, and that's where you show him that you're actually doing some work. So Ajahn Charasaro also brings up, it's called the gold plating, or we don't really gold plate in Australia here, but we brasso. So it's called the practice of brassoing the back of the Buddha. Because some people brasso, they want to brasso in the front, so everybody sees what they're doing. Everybody can appreciate all the hard work they're going. But the back of the Buddha usually doesn't get touched. Because it's like, no one sees it anyway. What's the point of brassoing the back of the Buddha? No one sees it. Because when we want to do things, we want to get a return for that. So sometimes it's good practice to brasso the back of the Buddha. That way it's a giving without expecting any return. It's just a nice thing to do. Brassoing the Buddha Rupa is really a good, nice feeling. I always encourage people, yes, even though I'm the abbot and I'm supposed to be in charge of everything, it's not really my monastery, it's your monastery too. You got 2 eyes, reasonable amount of intelligence, as much as I have. So you can look around and see what things needs to be done. I don't need to be given a chores before you do things. Your things, tools are lying around, you can take that and put it into the workshop, or you can straighten up the workshop, clean the toilet, do some raking around. So things that are common sense, things that are helpful, but things that you don't get credit for, you might think, because no one's looking, no one noticed that you put away these tools and these rakes that we leave everywhere. But and that's what karma is about. It's about doing what needs to be done, not looking for something in return. Even though sometimes it's tricky, because obviously when you do good karma, that's, you think about it. So that is tricky, because the more pure you give without expecting return. So giving, expecting a big mansion in the heavenly realm is tainted, because you're giving but you're expecting something in return. So sometimes it's, and the Buddha said there's many types of giving. And the purest one is you give because it's something that's needed, and only you know it. And then you give because it's the right thing to do. It's in that moment. So it's an adornment. It makes you happy. And it's true. True giving brightens your own mind. And that's what we have a saying, giving is the beginning of receiving. Because when you give something away, it's actually lighten your burden. And in essence, you give a sense of self. As we know from the Buddhist teaching, when you give less than your sense of self, happiness arises naturally. A worldly thing, no, I got to keep this, I might need it, I can't give too much out, I got to save my energy, because, I have to sit, it's a late night sitting, so I can't do too much work on that day, I got to pace myself. So in the worldly way, we're always kind of holding back, protecting ourselves. But that is really suffering, a lot of suffering and tension. So one of the ways of letting go is giving. Giving up your possessions, your funds, your money, giving your time to charity, to people around you, not specifically to the monastery, just whatever's needed to be done. Giving your time, and it gives higher, giving your judgment. We can be so judging of other people. So we give that up. We give people the benefit of the doubt. If people do something wrong, you don't say, well, they're not so nice, they're not so good. They're like, well, we don't know. Maybe they're having a bad day. That's why they're doing silly things. Never mind. At least they're trying. So give up judging other people. Judging others, judging yourself. So that's why it's called the chago. So it's the first way of letting go. Right? The second word the Buddha brought up is patinisago. My understanding is paticca is throwing away. It's the same. So you throw into the bin. When you throw into the bin, you don't look. You're not a, what do you call that? Dumpster diving. You're not coming back, pick it up again. You throw away, and that's it. So that's what you're craving. You find ways to throw it away and never look at it again. And it's craving is like that. Something that is not useful. Something that's useless. So hopefully you recognize you have craving, you throw it away. Take it to the bin, never look back again. So throwing away the craving. That's the way I'm looking at it. What's the other, anything else to say around this throwing away? No, it's just usually, trash. It's not something that's useful. So same with the craving. And you're throwing away the bin, you don't look at it again. It's something gone away, so hopefully. And that's why it reminds me. Some people ask, well, what is your practice like in the early years? But I think when you ask senior monks that, we have what it's called, there's an error on the positive side. That most people don't remember how much problem they had. Because the thing is, when you let go of your defilements, they disappear. So you don't think about it anymore. So you don't realize, oh yeah, I had all this problem with food, and I had that problem with lust, I had a problem with anger, because they're not really there anymore. But like when you ask them for 40 years, it's like, oh yeah, it wasn't too bad. And usually when you ask the monk, there's usually an error in that way, because when you let things go, you throw it away, it's not on your field radar anymore. You're not really, it's not an issue anymore. So that's why you don't remember maybe you had to struggle through it. But over the years, they kind of just fade away. This course fading, just fade away. So that's why that you don't remember that it's an issue. So that's what's like thrown away. It's like once you throw something away, you don't remember anymore. You don't think about it. So that's another way of finding, another perspective of letting go. Once it's gone, you don't remember again. So that's paticca. Next is muti. Muti is freedom, freeing. So one way to free yourself, So you free yourself from the craving. Muti is liberation, freedom. Vimutti is the same thing. We have a monastery in New Zealand, it's called Vimutti. That's also liberation, freedom. So you free yourself from the craving. Also, it's a way to freedom. Is to lessen the craving. So you free yourself. That's another way of looking at the craving or looking at your defilement. One day I'm going to be free of that. You're working your way towards freeing yourself from these cravings, from these forces of the mind. Muti. And the last is analayo. I had to Google this, and apparently on the Google it says alayo. Alaya is what's alaya? Alaya is like fascination. You like something. So analayo is Ajahn Brahm described is called a non-roosting. I think there's a Pali word for when a bird roosts, it has a nest, and it goes there and stays there. And it's a place that goes back over and over again. You have a nest, you have a roosting. Chicken has a roost, so it stays there. So analayo is non-roosting. And it's the same, you can see that with the craving. It's the place that you go to all the time. A certain tendency, certain habits you think about, you crave, you long for. And that's when you have a craving. But if you have analayo, then it's non-roosting. This craving can come, but then it fades away. It doesn't take roots. It doesn't take roots in the mind of an enlightened beings. They have these things that comes up, and it fades away. And sometimes you always have that question that people ask the meditation masters a lot. So, Ajahn, enlightened beings, what does that mean? That means that you don't have greed, hatred, delusion. You don't have any anger at all anymore. And some people explain such, no, I don't rise. Other people explain it's like, no, I have, but it doesn't stay. Anger comes up and it just fades away as fast as it comes up, because their mindfulness is so sharp. So it depends on how you look at it, how they explain it. But I think it has a lot to do with this non-roosting idea, that these craving, this feeling might come up, but it comes up and it passes away. And it's like the Buddha said, it's the same as a simile. Now I remember when the Buddha says, it's like, it's when a drop of water hits the stove, and if it's not hot, it lingers around. But when you're mindful, and when the stove is really hot, it just evaporates. And the Buddha, you give the simile, it's like it's the mind of the mindfulness. If a kilesa hits, and you're really mindful, it evaporates, just like a red hot stove. So you're really, really mindful, aware of your mental state. Any defilements that arises in the mind gets evaporated right away. And that's why I keep try to remember, to remind you guys, the beauty of the Dhamma is this clarity and wisdom. You don't need to do anything. There's not much doing so much. And when you see things clearly, you see defilements, they fade away on their own. Wisdom arises. There's no problem. You don't have to, I have kilesa, I have to let go of my kilesa. No, if you see clearly, the kilesa fades away. You don't have to do anything. Oh, the people come to me, I'm greedy, Ajahn. What do I do with my greed? You're only greedy, or you won't have greedy impulses because you don't see clearly. But you see clearly, you remember, every time you overeat, the stomach hurts, you feel sleepy, the taste of food is not that nice, it's just a habit. You get bored of it, you stop eating. It's not a problem because you don't see clearly, and then the force of habit still kicks in, that you continue these things. Well, I have a problem with anger. I get annoyed so quickly. I know, and you get this, I feel sorry people with anger because it can get complicated in the Western world. They say, I know anger is not good, but so I have a friend, and she says she gets angry at herself for getting angry. So it becomes very convoluted. I know it's not good when I get angry, so I get really mad at myself when I get angry. And it goes on and on and on and on like that. It's like, no, don't overthink. But when you see clearly, anger is unpleasant physically in your body and the mind. It's not peaceful. It's like a heat, a hotness, unpleasant. You let it go automatically. So it's the clear seeing happens. It's not something you have to do so much when you see clearly. But in the beginning, if you don't see clearly, then it's good to be restrained. And that's why we have all these rules around food, all this practice around food, about sleeping, not too much, about not having too many possessions. It's just kind of help to restrain the senses, allows you some freedom to practice, to get a hold of it. But as you practice, you see clearly, they fade away on their own. That's why I say in the beginning, when you're asking senior monks or nuns, was your practice difficult? Most of them say, oh yeah, it wasn't too bad. Because of course they fade, all that problem they had probably fade away already, so they don't remember so much anymore. But I think it's also interesting though, with the Thai meditation master, because Ajahn Chah, very pure-minded, lots of we call spiritual faculties of Ajahn Chah. But if you read his biography, he would just go on and on and on about noodles. And in the West, like, who craves noodles? It's like, it's okay, but it's not that great. I wouldn't dream about it. But that's what was going on for his first few years. That's all he thought about was noodles. So yeah, you might think, okay. It seems a bit, but that's his sankharas. Obviously, that's his conditioning. Where obviously you hear Ajahn Sumedho goes on and on about cakes. And you think, what, really? Ordaining some monk and you think about cakes all day long? But having practiced, you realize that that's what happened with craving, desires. When you live in the lay world, it can express itself in many things. It can be in a career, it can be a relationship, it can be food, it can be travel. But when you're in a monk, there's very few places it can leak out. And a lot of time it leaks out is into food. So that's why it feels a bit silly sometimes, 30-year-old man, 50-year-old man, or woman talking about craving for cakes or Snickers bar or noodles or mama, whatever. But that's how it comes out, because that's where we get stimulated. We don't look at cars and jewelries and things. The only thing we looked at is, food, mostly. That is stimulating. Obviously, there's no movies, there's not a lot of exposure. So understand that if you have desire, and unless you're fully enlightened, they'll come out and they express themselves in what gets triggered. In the monastery, a lot of times it's just little things, either the food or the people you're working with. The slightest thing get you really annoyed. They're not washing the dish properly. She left the spoon, not dried properly, or something. You get really irritated about it, but it's just a little thing. But you can see that that's how it gets triggered. Little things can get triggered. So as practitioner, you're trying to learn, find ways to let go. And I'm going to go on a limb and say, even though the Buddha just mentioned 4 ways of letting go, I think it's just an example. And the challenge for each and one of you is to find your different ways, find your ways in real time to let go, to make the mind more peaceful. Let go of your desire, let go of the craving. And you make the mind more peaceful. Like I was saying, other people don't know where exactly it fit, but like forgiveness. Forgiveness is a way to let go of any irritation, anger, let go of the past. And forgiveness is something that I talk a lot about, because it allows you to live with people in a small community, not holding on to anything that's said or done that you didn't like. You can move on from it. That you don't define your relationship by just unpleasant incident that happened. We can move on and learn to forgive each other. Learn to give people the benefit of the doubt. That's also a great way to let go. And that's what I encourage people is to, we're all here to learn to cultivate the mind, to cultivate wholesome qualities, to lessen our burden, hopefully, to lessen the suffering of our mind. So, and so much of that is about letting go of the defilements. And sometimes the word letting go, it's so overused in Buddhist jargon that sometimes it doesn't even mean anything anymore. It's like, what does that mean, let go? If I say let go, how? Well, guess what? That's not my job to tell you how. It's your job to figure out how to let go of the greed in the mind, how to let go of the irritation, how to let go of the delusion in the mind, and find ways that work for you. Could be just letting go or making peace, being at peace with things as they are. My favorite thing is also, practical, saying not to make a problem out of it. So whatever you're facing, how terrible things are, not to make a problem. It's flooding, not to make a problem. It's a drought, not to make a problem. You have issues in the kitchen, not to make a problem. Work as best as you can with the situation. Yeah, so that's also a way of cultivating wholesome states, way of making peace. And so much I talk about is acceptance as well. It is like this. Now how do I work with it? And so I say, no, I shouldn't be like this. He shouldn't be like that. He should be like this. Well, he's not like that. He's like this. So you have to work with it. Well, things shouldn't be like that. Well, yeah. And Ajahn Chah's famous phrases, yeah. If it should be like that, it wouldn't be like that. But it's like that. So what are you going to do about it? Are you going to suffer? Are you going to resist? Are you going to fight the world, fight reality? Or are you going to accept things as they are and work with it? If I say, no, I want them to be how I should want them. The world should move according to my wishes and desire, according to my way of looking at the world. Perfect world is a world how it runs the way I want to run. But as we all know, the world doesn't run according to our desires. It runs according to its own causes and condition. And whatever happens, obviously there's condition bringing that into reality. Whether you like it or not, you rather not, or it's wrong according to your view, it is here already. So what are you going to do? There's always a choice. Are you going to make peace and accept it and work with it, or are you going to fight it? I encourage people over and over again. Yeah, it's a choice you make. You have to be right, or you can be peaceful. Always choose peace. You don't have to be right. Let the other person be right. You just be peaceful. Work with things as they are. And gradually you'll see the minds become more brighter, happier, sense of peace. Because you're not looking for something else. You're happy with things the way they are. Not waiting some distant future to be happy. Waiting to when you get your meditation together, you'll be happy. No, you're happy the way things are. Mind's not perfect, but I'm happy. Fine, it's good enough. Body's not perfect, you know what? But it's good enough. I'm happy. Monastery is not perfect, We could, do more meditation, but or do less meditation. But I'm happy. Happy with the schedule. I don't need to change the schedule. Happy, content, at peace. So it's about moving towards that. Moving towards acceptance. You hear that over and over again. Unconditional acceptance of the way things are. You don't need condition. I'll be happy when this happens. I'll be happy when I'm healthy. I get rid of my headache. I get rid when my joints aren't aching anymore. I'll be happy. I'll be happy when at least I get a nimitta, and I'll be happy. I get a jhana, then I'll be happy. I'll be happy when I can see at least a deva. One deva, come on. Be happy at least to see a ghost, at least something. My meditation is getting boring. No, like I said, unconditional happiness. Happy with the way things are. Happy with the way you are. Happy with the way other people are. Then you're happy. You're not waiting around. And it's a path of increasing happiness. So cultivate a sense of happiness, sense of ease, whatever you do. And hopefully you're employing at least the 4 way of letting go the Buddha mentioned. The generosity, giving without expecting anything in return, especially with your practice. You're not sitting here to be born in as a deva. When I meditate well enough, I'm a pure person, I'll come back as a deva. That'd be good. Have a big mansion in the sky for me. Have all this beautiful food and beautiful music that you read about. No, you're giving yourself to the practice, because that's the thing to do. Out of respect, out of inspiration for the Buddha, for your teachers, but really just to practice for the sake of practicing, not looking for anything in return. So that is giving without expecting a return. Throwing away any desires, any plans, any agendas you have. Throw away, not looking back. Moving on. Freeing yourself from the burden of expectations. Freeing yourself from the past. Freeing yourself from the worries of the future. Free yourself from the present moment either. Free, completely free. We don't need to go backward, go forward, stand still. When you're free, you don't exist. Nowhere. That's the enlightened beings. They don't leave a trace. They move through the world quietly. So free, complete freedom from desires, from expectations, from wanting. And finally is the analayo, not to allow anything to take root, not to allow anything to get stuck in yourself, in the mind. Whether someone said anything, something happened, it's gone. It could be a second ago, it's gone. Yesterday, it's gone. Instead of having this sticky mind, as people say something to you, you're brewing over it, festering over it, chewing over it, getting annoyed over it, just let it go. So don't have this sticky mind of irritation, sticky candy mind of irritation. You have a WD-40 mind, I like to call. This mind is just smooth, No, doesn't make any noise, no complaining, works fine. Mind is smooth, smooth as silk. It's Thai Airway logo. Be as smooth as silk. Just float around the world, not making any problem, not making any issues, just floating through life, happy and at ease. So those are the 4 ways of letting go from the Dhammacakka Sutta. And I offer that for your reflection tonight.